Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Nagel, and today we have a very special guest on today, author of Tales from the Grid Square, Volume 1, and Tales from the Grid Square Instagram account, Nick Orton. I'll get that up for the camera, a pseudonym, if that's the right way for writers, correct, Nick?
I think so. I'm honestly,
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but let's go with
Yeah, I
that.
think. Yeah, we'll go with that. Sounds intelligent.
That's what I say.
But
I mean,
the pseudonym or whatever. But that's not Nick's real name. But he's still currently active duty. So we're gonna not do the Air Force Reserve route and expose his classified documents. We will keep his identity a secret because Tales from the Grid Square is much more highly classified, top secret organization that we need to protect, opposed to secrets with our allies in the Ukrainian-Russian war. So
I'm sorry for the coughing fit. I try not to spit my coffee over my computer.
No, it's great to have you on. It's awesome. It's a Friday night. I think you're probably relaxing a little bit here too. I understand you have a family, so you have put the little ones down for a nap. I do as well. We have family over for a late Easter. So
late Easter, nice.
Yeah. I'm very excited to do this podcast. And honestly, so we dive right into it. I know we can't get too much into your history, but can you kind of vaguely say, like, how long have you kind of been in the military, or what's your again? You don't have to even say your career path, but what what kind of wanted to have you join the Army I believe the Army.
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of led you down that path?
Yeah. So I've been I'm coming up on 8 years in the Army here. I've been in since around 2015 timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
I I'll put it out there so everybody's not disappointed or makes up their own minds, but I'm just a pretty normal guy in the Army, regular dude, conventional guy. So it's not like I'm not like some intel dude like that one dweeb. I'm not going on Discord to put out secrets or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just just a regular guy in the Army, and I've always had a kind of like interest in like fringe and paranormal stuff, and I kind of just like somehow like my interest of things in the military and interest of paranormal collided into this whole concept of Tales from the Grid Square. But yeah, no, I'm just a regular conventional logistics guy in the Army. Been in for about, like I said, coming up. It'll be my Army birthday is coming up here in June here soon. It'll be 8 years.
Nice. So are you digging it? I mean, I was in from 2005 to 9, and you went in 15. How are you kind of liking, the Army these days?
I mean, like with anything, it has its ups and downs. Like, like I don't think it's you go online, you see so much like hate for it, like that people are in, and it's like it has its problems. But I have been pretty lucky. I mean, it really just depends on your leaders. Like I'm very blessed to have like an incredible command team, battalion command team, all the way up to brigade. These last like 2-3 years. So like for me, it's just a different perspective. I think it's just mindset too. I I grew up in kind of like the shadow of the GWAT. When I graduated high school, a lot of my friends enlisted right away, and we're on the tail end of the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. My dad was in the war and everything like that. I would say it's definitely different from when those guys, my dad, up to those dudes I graduated high school with, experienced. But it's not bad. I feel like there's these like little isolated events that get like a lot of rap, and like the Army does have its problems. Don't get me wrong, but the Army itself is a human organization, and unfortunately, it's people will make or break the Army.
Yeah. No,
and that's just my opinion. That's not any views.
That's not the opinions of Tales from the Grid Square or the account. No, I agree with you. I mean, the same thing. Like I was in, like I said, 05 to 09, 3 combat deployments. I was in the Marine Corps Infantry Scout Sniper. Also, not to give too much away about you, but I was stationed in Hawaii. So nice. I was in Kaneohe Bay, and it was an amazing time to come back from combat deployments and then to be in Waikiki in 20 minutes. That being said, though, like I told people I'm a Minnesota boy, so like I love my weather, I love my snow, I love my seasons. And I was like, when I got back from my third deployment, I was like, get me off this fucking rock, you know, like I want to go back home to the snow. And, but Hawaii was pretty awesome though. It was a great experience to be there. But yeah, I mean, it's just like anybody else's experience, you know, especially with the military, it's like you can have a lot of negatives, and that's always easy to kind of cash in on, especially for guys like us in the infantry. But but if you're, like I said, I know guys that just love. They weren't, I was with the Marine Corps, and they are as motivated as the day they got out of boot camp for the last 15 years. And they just love it. It's kind of, you get what you make out of it. It's shitty at times, but you can have a pretty good positive outlook. Are you going to stay in for 20 years, or are you going to be calling it soon?
I don't know. You ask me that question, it changes daily.
Yeah.
The retirement system. I'm grandfathered into the last retirement system. Having a
Yeah. What
pension is
was
nice.
that? Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be what was it? I mean, I didn't pay much attention to it, but
Yeah.
yeah, something to do with like you're getting paid more if the old one, correct? Or how did that all work out?
So the old one, just to kind of like water it down, is the old one's a pension system. So when you retire, basically a percentage of your base pay every month for the rest of your life. With the new system, and I could be wrong on this, but it's more of like a 401k. So you contribute to it, and the army matches it. So what you contribute
Okay.
is what you get back.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. What's the? Oh, okay, I got it. All right. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. I don't know. My brother's about to retire, so he's explaining a lot of that to me, and it's weird to think because if I would have stayed in, I would be retired in 2 years. So it's always a weird thing to think about, which
I
I try
mean,
not to go down that rabbit hole too much because I start feeling old.
it's
But
it's weird for me to think I've been in 8 years. I'm like, what the hell?
yeah, it goes by fast. It goes by fast.
It really
So
does.
yeah, absolutely. So where'd you got to grow up, or where did what part of the states did you come from?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Texas, born in Corpus Christi, um, but I've lived like all over the country. My dad was a Marine, so we were constantly bouncing between the East and West Coast hubs for the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Um, so I've lived like all over the United States, including Oklahoma, but predominantly like most of my time was most of my young adulthood. I guess if I was to say like out of the 18 years I was a young adult before I left for school, I was 11 of those years was Oceanside, California. So
Okay.
that is
So did your
like,
dad retire then? So you were there?
yeah,
I'm
he's out.
assuming. Okay.
Yeah, old man did 28 years. I don't know how he did it.
28 years in the
Yeah.
Marine Corps. Jesus. Was he like a master guns? Sorry, I'm diving into that. Like it just blows me away sometimes. Like, because I know how miserable the Marine Corps can be.
Yeah,
So it's like, yeah,
it's like my dad said the same thing too. He's like, the Marine Corps is miserable, but all I wanted to do was be a Marine. Like that was his life goals. Like, I wanted to be a Marine. Um, so for him, like being a Marine for 28 years, that was like the crowning achievement for him
yeah,
in
yeah,
his
exactly.
career.
Like, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's just something he wanted to do ever since he was a kid. My
yeah.
grandfather was a retired master sergeant in the Air Force, on my dad's side, and then like my mom's dad, he's like a colonel, a retired colonel in the Army, and I have other uncles and great grandparents that were all in the military. So it's like we have a history of military service in our family.
Yeah.
I guess you could say it was
No,
almost
that's
predestination that I joined.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's great. I mean, both my grandparents were Marines, so that's the big reason I joined. None of my aunts or uncles or my dad or anything like that, but the influence was heavy, especially World War II Korea generation. Those always kind of, I don't say hang over your head, but they're always kind of there, in the
Oh
background.
yeah,
Like most kids, I mean, the World War II generation, or even or Vietnam. There's a lot of grandparents that came from that, and that just influences you in general.
oh
So,
absolutely.
but yeah, but no, dive right into it. How did this all evolve? I am a huge fan. I mean, I have your book. I read probably about 80% of it. I did see like some of the stuff that was posted on Instagram, and kind of went to my favorite parts. But how did this evolve? And what gave you the idea of like, let's start writing this down and giving little, you know, stories out to the internet, these little like inklings, and it's an amazing. I love it. This short story form, and it's phenomenal. So what was the origins of all that?
Yeah, like with any great idea, it was with alcohol. I like I said earlier, I had a interest of the paranormal. Like as a kid, uh, I was always like super into researching like Bigfoot and UFOs and local legends, everything from like ciphers and lost treasure to alien abductions, like everything.
Yeah.
I loved it as a kid. Couldn't get enough of it. I read Communion, which is a book about alien abduction, when I was like 10 years old, and I didn't understand anything of it, but like that's how much of an interest I had. I saw a book with an alien on the cover, and was like, I'm gonna read this, and I didn't understand anything then. Now I understand it a little bit more. But like to my point, always a huge interest in it. And I've always like asking around and learning about local legends and stuff like that. And I noticed like I've started. Oh, I think my youngest just woke
No.
up. 1 second, can we pause this?
Oh yeah. No worries, no worries. I'll just keep it running. You do you.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just check the camera. We can cut this
It's
out.
all good. Oh, it's all good. It's all good.
I heard her crying. I hope she goes back down.
No, I'm the same way. I got how old's your daughter?
I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Yeah, I got a 2-year-old, and we still do the baby monitor. Totally understand.
Let's see. I don't know if you can hear her in the background.
No, I can't.
Okay, good.
No, the Rivers. This app's pretty good about and then I can also like cut stuff out of the background too when it comes to noise cancellation and stuff like that. So
Okay.
I got a whole family upstairs who are drinking and watching.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, I'm gonna try to see if she. This was like my fear if she would wake up. I'm gonna let her cry it out a little bit.
All right.
I think she's calming down. She's still laying down, so that's good. But yeah, we can.
Oh yeah. So like the origins or what you had a lot of interest in it?
Yeah, so like I was always super interested in the paranormal, and just kind of naturally, it's something that I do is like I like to look up local legends and stuff like that, and so I like to ask around and whatever, and it's like kind of like once you like at the smoke pits and like in the field or late at night on staff duty, like inevitably the ghost stories come out, right? And I couldn't get enough of them when I was in the army. I was always asking about them. And really for me, what it was I went to JRTC, and for the people in the army, they know like Fort Polk, right? Went to Fort Polk, had kind of a weird experience. Had a friend who was there at the same time as me who had basically a similar experience, plus other weird stuff that had happened to him, which kind of got me looking into it more, and finding out that there's this whole legend of like paranormal events that happen at Fort Polk. It's like its own like little like urban legend, maybe not kind of thing there that people just accept. And one night, basically, kind of fast forward through it all, had a couple beers. I was like, what if I created a page where I talk about like paranormal military events? And so I created, had like 6 beers in, created the Instagram page. I couldn't figure out a name. I chose Tales from the Grid Square, um, and that's how the page started. And it really didn't kick off until I had some friends help me out online because like Instagram, there's all these little niche pages. So I had like two pages, a couple pages that helped me out. Two of which now have their own podcast because it's like interesting stuff. There was let me back up, kind of skipped ahead. There during COVID, when everyone was bored, two of those pages started doing every week on Tuesdays they would do like people just send in, they would take screenshots of messages they would get about people and their like military ghost stories. And there's actually quite a few, and they're like quite a few like freaky ones. And that combined with my own experiences at JRTC kind of got the ball rolling, and I created Tales from the Good Square after a couple beers. Um, going back to the alcohol, and I really didn't get like pick up steam with people submitting stories until I went on Sasquatch Chronicles with Wes Germer, and like after that it just started snowballing, and then I went on the Confessionals podcast with Tony Merkel, and then that snowballed, and like now I started having people coming in and giving stories, and now I'm like, oh, okay, like some of these stories are actually like pretty intense. These are beyond the, I think I saw someone like a shadow. It's like, I fucking was in a Humvee and I looked to my left and I saw a freaking giant monkey staring at me in the dark or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's amazing because I remember, especially, the being able to track these kind of stories and like just giving these little, and that's funny too because I remember as a kid reading like scary stories, in the short story format, and it's phenomenal with Tales from the Grid Square where now you're getting these real events from real people, and that's what I really like about your format is just they're just like I don't know what the fuck I saw, or you can really relate to it though because of the sleep deprivation stuff, and you actually trust what people say, because there's so much of that happens when they're like, nope, I wasn't sleep deprived, and you're kind of like, oh, okay, you did get this certain amount of rest because I was on watch in Iraq and I remember seeing things and we knew it wasn't real. There was a joke we had and we said if you see the purple monkey running around, in the middle of the night, you're sleep deprived. And I remember because it's in your head. I remember seeing a purple monkey run across the VCP, the vehicle checkpoint in front of our post to enter our fob because I'd been on I'd been up for like 30 odd some hours. It was hot. It was 120 degrees. This is 2006 Iraq. We're on our own in the middle of a city, and I remember seeing that little purple monkey just kind of like scurry across and it's not real, you know what I mean? But like somebody saw it and then they tell you, but hearing these or reading these stories, like you kind of start to believe more and more, in ghosts, in the paranormal, in the supernatural. I think some of my favorites are the giants of Kandahar and the
Oh
giants of
yeah.
Afghanistan. I personally just I loved Afghanistan when I went, and then I ended up spending a total of 2 years on ground there as a contractor. Just love the people, love the country. Predominantly in Kabul in the Northeast, but yet when when you started putting these together, I mean, do you do a lot of these stories that, excuse me, the people that send them in, do you feel like they're pretty authentic?
Yeah, for the most part, I feel um, most of the stuff I've sent in has like some type of authenticity to it. Now, whether it was like truly paranormal or maybe like mistaken identity or sleep deprivation, like I'll leave that up to the readers because
Hmm.
I'm really not trying to like be like some of these other pages and people out there that are just like, look, Sasquatch, and it's like a fucking bush in the like a bush in the woods,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
just like trying to generate clicks. Um, I've gotten a few that I've read, and I'm like, I'm very well versed in like internet memes and stuff like that. Like, I was, I was lurking on 4chan before it became mainstream on X, like the paranormal part of it. I was reading No Sleep back in the day when before it used to became like a fiction kind of website. The
hmm,
stories were supposedly real, so like I've had some people send me like some creepy pastas and stuff like that, like the flayed man, which is like an internet meme. It's like a creepy pasta. Like some people have tried to send me that. It's like it's legit, and I'm like, okay, like nice try.
yeah.
Um, but for the most part, if I post it, I think that there's some level of authenticity to it, or like it's worth reading and maybe drawing your own conclusions.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with the creepypasta. I remember the Russian sleep experiment, and that's literally the I wrote a for film school. I was in film school. It was like 2015 to 16 was my second year, and I finished my only feature length film. Like the script at I think 105 pages, and it was the Russian sleep experiment because I was so into that paranormal,
Oh
and I
man.
just created my own like world surrounding it, and like I knew enough about the military. I knew enough. I have an intelligence studies bachelor's degree, and so I kind of knew a bit of Russian, Cold War history through that. So I kind of like put events, just kind of put it in reality and put a few things here and there into the characters and stuff like that. But that was always my crowning achievement for writing. I was like, I did it. I always thought it'd be fun to make it. I think there's a few shitty independent films out there with because I know that was like took some momentum, the Russian sleep experiment stuff. But is there so now diving into it? I mean, what really catches your eye? Like, what's your favorite subject? Is it the UFOs? Is it paranormal? What kind of gets you going a little bit? You're like, yeah, this is highly entertaining.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one, man. I'm always a big Sasquatch guy.
Yeah.
I like the Afghan Giants ones, and like I've gotten a few stories from people. Uh, you know, like when I went on Sasquatch Chronicles, one of the things I talked to off the air with the host was, he talked about how he got all these stories, um, not stories, but he's had service members reach out to him, not wanting to go on air, not wanting to go on record, just to get off their chest at saying like, hey, like no, like giant of Kandahar is real. I saw a giant in Afghanistan, and I used to not buy into too much of the giant of Kandahar because the story, if you read, if like you go look through the whole story, the original one, there's some details that don't quite make sense, or that are very convenient details. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound exactly like it's written by someone who is intimately familiar with the military.
Yeah.
However, one of the first big stories I ever got for Tales from the Grid Square was about a guy who saw a giant in Afghanistan through thermals running along a mountaintop. You know, and I've gotten tons of stories like that, and I've gotten stories about people that have seen them from the same thing, like through thermals, from drones. In the middle of a firefight, see something pop out of a cave and pop back in. Um, and it got me thinking, like, hey, there might be something to this.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole with you. I'm fully, like I've been into those mountains in Afghanistan, man, and believe me when I say those valleys are untouched, they're fucking
Oh yeah,
untouched. And we were in Uzbin, and they had not seen any. They hadn't seen any foreign forces within this valley. It was only 2 valleys away from Kabul, too. It wasn't like it was like the Korangal or whatever, or Peshawar Valley. It's more. It was Tagab, and then it was Uzbin, and then I think it was Logman or Logar. Can't remember which one. And then I mean, we roll in, and apparently the Russians never made it past the mouth of the valley. So when we went in, they were like, hey, this is, they thought we were some old pre-Soviet Afghan government. They named some president that was like, yeah. And I was like, oh shit. And these villages, and it was kind of the beauty about it too. I mean, to me, it was a gorgeous valley. Like it was right before the mountains really started coming in, but it was these deep rolling hills. And then it just kind of evolved into the mountainscape. It was gorgeous. I loved it.
oh wow,
And we set up a new fob there. We got into some big battles and whatnot. It was pretty nasty, but there was a point though where the road ended, and then you could see in the horizon there was more villages, and we never got to them.
that's crazy.
And
That's
they
crazy.
just. I know, and then like I literally, I tell my wife, I was like, Afghanistan holds a place in my heart. Like, it's truly is like undiscovered, and like I dream of sometimes of those paths and those things, like how deep did they go, like to return there hopefully, and I tell my wife I kick myself for not going back before the evacuation, back in like 2012, 13, 14, when I had the money, I had the time, I was always like, I'll eventually get there, like it'll be fine, and now, good fucking luck. You'll never,
Yeah.
Especially being a, former military and stuff. They're not gonna, they're trying to like release videos of like YouTubers going to Afghanistan and rolling around. It's like, get the fuck out of here.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh, that
anybody
that
of
British
any
guy.
legitimacy. Yeah, British. Yeah, he was even he just was like a YouTuber,
Yeah, he got
and
arrested by them actually.
yeah, and he was there before. So there's a video of him already with a different YouTuber, and then he went back for like a third time, and then they snatched his ass up. It was like, what? Yeah. And then so same with the others, like, you're just not going back, like it's just not going to happen. But yeah, those valleys, when they say they're untouched, they're untouched.
Oh yeah.
So it's I can believe some of these tales, and we never really ran into the cave systems, but I know that in those other valleys they existed. So it's almost like you want to like keep your distance, but at the same time you're like, yeah, these are untouched places, you know what I mean? And you're not getting very deep, so yeah, I do agree with you too. There's some stuff, some of the stories that, hey, that seems a little bit off, or this or that, sometimes I think there's that, I think I know which one you're talking about. They're like, they got into a firefight with the giant, and the giant killed like one of the squad leaders or
Rest in
something
peace,
like
Dan.
that. Yeah, something like that. And you're like, okay, there's a bit much, but seeing it though from a distance, or seeing it through thermals, and like you said, that's just something that's completely abnormal, even if it is, something that is much more, maybe it is a dude that's like 7'5", or something, or some, like what's his nuts from like China, that the tall ass basketball
Yao
player. You
Ming.
know what I mean? Yao Ming, yeah. Like there's like a few Afghan Yao Mings running around in
Shit,
those
maybe.
valleys. Yeah, who knows? But and then and I think the other thing cool beyond the Giants one, I think of it in the stories was like there was one story that you have in there, and it still gives me chills, and it's so like that's what makes me believe in the paranormal or something. It's like the village that just didn't have anybody in it, and the
Ooh, yeah.
interpreters wouldn't go in. And like I totally believe that, like 1,000%. They're like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like the interpreters wouldn't go. The Marines were like, I think they might have saw something or whatever, or they're just like the whole. None of it made sense. It was empty, and it had like these weird doors,
Yeah, I
or
remember that
something.
one.
Yeah, it's a really good. Like I said, I fucking love your book. So I totally like as a filmmaker, like I'm like, oh my god, like this is just a treasure trove of just ideas. It's phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Afghanistan, there's stuff there. Like I think there's a lot of it's crossroads of the world that there could fuck it. Like I'd be like, yeah, all right. I guess there's some tall dudes running around in the mountains that you
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
know about. Like and you can duck and weave in and out of those places. It's not just like we had issues finding insurgents. Like of course you're gonna get lost. I mean you know we didn't even go all fully down our own valley,
Yeah.
and I think people think that it's like Iraq where it's like it's streets and it's oversaturated with troops and you can duck and weave through corners. Like no man, like there was like maybe 20 of us in the valley, and they're talking about rat lines going into all these other valleys with Taliban and Al Qaeda and AQI, and we're not covering that ground. Like we had like I think like 40 or 50 clicks spread between essentially 10 to 20 guys at any given time. We were our own QRF. It was so it's 100% things could definitely slip through your fingers, or strange things could be happening, and yeah, I mean, as I said, I love about hearing about the stories that you're telling and that people are writing in, even like the UFO ones, like being on, you know, uh, post or being on, patrol. And like, I've heard stories like that too from other people. Just beyond from your from your book, like UFOs and all this other stuff, and deep diving into the whole thing and reporting it up the chain, and then like having some people like knock on the door. It's like really, and you kind of and you believe the story too. You're not like it's not like they're like outlandishly telling you this. They're just like, yeah, man, this shit just fucking happened. Like I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you get more? Do you have how many stories of? I mean, you obviously wrote the book and you have the the Instagram page, but are there a few that stick out to you that had you posted about that are like, God damn, that's fucking real, you
Oh
know?
yeah, for sure. I've so like all the Sasquatch ones I've posted, I like vehemently like anything that like suggests Bigfoot. I'm a huge believer that Bigfoot exists and is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether if it's flesh and blood or whatever woo thing you want to think of. Um, so like when people see him on like military bases and stuff like that, like I get it. I can understand that. I would never notice I was stationed at Fort Drum. Like
Mm-hmm.
they found fucking pardon my language,
No, you're good. You're good.
but they found like uh, a hippie commune living out there that had been out there for years, hiding out in the training area. There's at Fort Drum, this is just Fort Drum alone. There's a satanic cult that operates out in the training area. The people
Yeah,
find their ritual circles all the time. Uh,
that's insane.
there's homeless guys that live out in the impact area that have memorized where the main areas are that get impacts, and they live out in like underground bunkers and caves that they've dug themselves. Like I was in the air and I've seen it with my own eyes. You know,
Yeah.
like they're dudes out there. Like, and those are guys that have just snuck on post. And
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe like when people see Bigfoot like on these military installations, like it's not hard to get into a massive training area. Most of the time, there's like a road and a sign that says "Please do not enter." Like it's not like it's fenced off. They don't have the means to do that. Like so
Yeah.
something can
Yeah.
wander back and forth. And what a better place? No one's really going to be back
Yeah.
there but soldiers. Soldiers are
Yep.
loud.
Yep.
They leave a lot of food behind. Just perfect for
Mm-hmm.
them.
Perfect. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that too. It's like I came from the Marine Corps. I was in the National Guard for about 8, 9 years. Just got out in 2022. And yeah, that I'd heard about Fort Drum and some of these other places, but in the Marine Corps we had 29
Yep.
Palms, and I just remember getting not any crazy stories, but I do remember them to briefing us like, hey, there are, I think they called them scrappers, but people that would go out into the UXO area and try to get metal.
Yep.
And he's like one that all our coyotes or our instructors or whatever the Marines are, they're like, do not wander into any of these areas at all ever. Stick to the roads, stick to the bivouac site, because there could be unexploded ordnances or whatever. He goes, once in a while, you're going to hear like an explosion going off. It's one of these guys basically tapping a J dam that didn't go off, and it fucking just blows them up, and they find body parts everywhere.
Ugh.
So it's not yeah, it doesn't surprise me that, like you said, especially in those wooded areas, you could find hippie communes, or that's what's super creepy when I've read those stories about the like the cults, or like the old school cults, like there was one you guys posted, or you posted, the guy, they went to the one house or the one chapel they weren't supposed to go to, and it stuck with the guy or whatever, and it was
Oh
just
yeah,
like
in
super
Quantico.
fucking, yeah, in Quantico, dude, that shit. I don't I My wife, I was like, I don't fuck with that. Like, like Ouija boards or extra, I fully believe in all that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's something I don't care you believe it or not, just don't fuck
Oh,
with it.
absolutely.
Like even believe in God, believe whatever the devil, it's like, or maybe whatever it is, it's not fucking good. Don't fucking deal, don't, like, there's evil in the world. You don't think that can't
Oh
manifest
yeah.
into something
Well,
beyond what we are? Like you have, like, you feel like a presence of good or a presence of you, like, you don't think that could manifest something more beyond our reality or beyond our physics? And then you hear all these stories, and it's kind of like, it's like it happens so much, you almost kind of have to believe that there's an inkling that it's real, like. And seeing your Instagram page, like, it kind of gives you that, like, nah, these are just young kids. They're not, it's not like in the 80s where they're writing a book and trying to find scrap some stories together, because they don't have the World Wide Web yet, or they don't have the internet. Now it's just like, yeah, man, I don't know, this fucking happened, and it was really weird. And then you pile that on and you tally those up, you're like, I think there's something here, but that, do those stories, man, they run chills down my back. It's like, fuck that. Like, like, as a kid, like, I don't mess with Ouija boards, or just like, nope, bad juju, we're not going in there. Nope, fuck that. you know wow, that's really creepy. And it's crazy, you say that. So was there any weird happenings then when you guys were on Fort Drum, or people go missing, or was it just known, like, yeah, there's a satanic cult out here, like,
yeah, like I don't remember too
whatever?
much, because I was in an aviation unit, so we didn't go out to the field too much. But like my guys would tell me, like, yeah, there's like all these. So like there used to be like towns out there that got swallowed up by the training area when the land was sold off and people moved, and so there's all these like basements and stuff out there. And my guys were telling me they swore up and down one of the training areas in the back 40. They found like a basement, like I guess an old storeroom from a house, and they went down inside and they said it was like covered. The walls were covered in like satanic symbols, and there was like a sacrifice altar and candles that had looked like that they were just recently lit, and it freaked them the fuck out, and they got out of there, and like didn't go anywhere near it. Uh, I know I had a friend who personally encountered one of these hippie communes out there when they tried to block a road. This was like in 2015. I was like right before I got there. Um, Me personally, besides seeing like some of these like squatters that live out in the impact area from the air, I saw like this one time, and I first I it like was I was so tired and so focused on my job at the time, it kind of faded. Like I didn't think about it at all. But it was like during a field training exercise. It was late at night. I was with my platoon, and they were setting up a FARP, and I was dual hatting, manning the radios, and sitting on a 50, waiting for the op 4. And like I'm scanning through the woods with my 50 and with a thermal, and all of a sudden I get like a heat signature, and I look, and it looks like a gigantic person, like standing there, like in the wood line, like just a little bit back, but it's so tall, the head is like being obstructed by the low branches of the trees, like in the
Yeah.
pines. And I'm like watching this thing, like, what is this? And like I'm like, is this the op 4? Like, is this guy like super close? And then it like turns around and like walks deeper into the wood line, and I can see like this thing is big. It's bigger than a person. It has to be like 7 8 feet tall. It's huge. It looks like a huge person. Like I don't know what that was. it
Yeah.
kind of flushed it out of my brain at the time because I was focused on my job and not trying to be distracted. But like years later, I thought about it. I was like, that was actually kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nuts. That's crazy to hear. And like I said, it's cool kind of cross checking with, like I said, I think more serious people. Like I think that's what makes, I don't want to say things more believable, but things more real. Like, I believe you. Like, yeah, it's fucking weird. Like why? What was that? And you're just, when these stories start to compile, like I think there's another one they wrote about, like I think guys actually started shooting at certain things, or there was a ghost, like there was a ghost in Iraq and the sniper team engaged, and they're like, what the fuck, like that was like everyone saw it, and they shot, and then they went to the mobile section, Humvees were like, all right, got a clean kill, yep, cool, and then they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, there's no one here. And then they, like, the sniper team's like, I feel like a fucking asshole because I took a shot, like to put a guy down. It's a big deal. You run that up but I think he called it up through the battalion, like, hey, we have a insurgent, et cetera, cleared hot to engage. And then you're expecting a result, like, yep, we got him. And then nothing. There's no body, there's no blood, there's just, and it's like right in the middle of the street. Like it was like perfect. Everyone's like, he was right here and he's not. And then another sniper team was like, oh yeah, that's a ghost. We did the same thing. Like how fucking wild that is, that you're engaging a ghost and people are seeing it. Like not just
That's
you,
crazy.
not just you that are sleep deprived. It's like your whole fucking team sees it. You called it in. It stayed there. Your spotter confirmed that it was real. You took a shot and it's not there. Like that's so insane. Like that's like I said, I almost, it puts way more credibility into the paranormal, into UFOs, into, Sasquatch, into, all this other stuff. So if the Sasquatch stuff is kind of your favorite, what's the ones that really freak you out? Like, that, as we're sitting here kind of like, yeah, you could kind of get scared, yeah, or not scared, but you get the chills reading some of these
Oh
stories.
yeah.
But what is one that you're like, that scares the living hell out of me?
So
There's
it's
something beyond our realm, or something that's just like, holy fuck.
so they're not. It's not actually Sasquatch ones, but it's ones I've been following, right? Because like everybody hears Sasquatch, like the Dog Man, right? Um, there's some really good Dogman stories I've gotten, but the ones that freak me out the most, right, is like like Skinwalkers thrown around so much nowadays, and it's like this
Yeah, I've
colloquial
seen the
term.
memes.
Yeah, it's a meme.
Yeah, yeah,
Wendigo
yeah,
and Skinwalkers, a meme. But
yeah,
you know, there's something that people keep seeing, and they keep seeing these like, you know, pale humanoid-looking creatures that walk around on all fours with glowing eyes that have eye shine. They look like like I don't know what to describe it, but like I get chills just thinking about it because I firmly believe that they are real, and I think it's like the North American cryptid nobody really talks about.
yeah.
I have a good friend of mine that kind of like Nick Ladlaw was the one that inspired me to start this book, right? Uh,
Oh no, it's great. I'm friends with Nick. I'm actually
yeah,
very good friends with Nick
Nick's a
now.
Nick's a good dude.
Yeah,
Um,
he's amazing. He's great.
he was the one that got me turned on to looking into it, and I looked into it, and because just stuff like he had heard growing up as a kid, more or less. And I looked into it, and like in some places, like, and I've like confirmed with these people, like you say Skinwalker and Wendigo, like it's like something like it's like a cougar around. It's like they just live in the woods. It's just another predator to worry about. Um, you know, actually, do you mind if I cutting that last part out?
Yeah,
About well,
yeah,
I'll start over and just like yeah, Nick Ladlaw.
yeah.
I don't know if you would want me to say that.
Nick's name, or
Yeah,
like
like associate him with that real quick.
with the Skinwalkers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think you'd mind. I don't think that's a.
Okay.
What do you mean? Like he would, like he's seen it?
He had friends that have seen it and have had weird experiences. And
No, I don't think he would. No, I don't think he'd mind that.
okay, so we'll
Yeah,
continue here.
yeah,
So yeah, like I've seen videos and stuff that just do not look fake of like literally like pale creatures like running around in the woods. And there's actually one I just posted on my page not too long ago. I don't know if you saw it. It was like this dude on his land. He's like, "Oh yeah, we got another one out here tonight, and here the dog's going crazy." Like he's talking like nonchalantly, like there's like an animal on his property. He zooms into the wood line, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Like you literally see behind a bush like turkey peeking, right? Like moving around, like kind of like how a monkey does when it's like curious, right? It
Yeah.
is no shit is a pale fucking humanoid looking creature with glowing fucking eyes. And I've gotten so many stories from so many soldiers and Marines about how they've seen the exact same thing either through MVGs or seeing a face poke around a tree or seeing something walk through the woods of a pale creature that looks like a human, but it's all like it's just the proportions are all wrong. Its eyes are glowing. It looks all weird, right? And it just gives me chills thinking about it. And I like think back like there's all these disappearances and stuff in the woods, and hear all these stories online about people like hearing their voices yell back at them or hearing weird things in the woods, and I'm a firm believer there's something out there.
Yeah, especially if there's so many stories like that. What was the location? You said for when Nick suggests you do that, that he had some friends. Where was that at?
It was
Like you
like
said, is that a certain area in the U.S. that's more prominent? Like
I,
in the Northeast or
this was I think in the
Northwest?
northeast, northwest,
Okay.
maybe like I can't remember what states he said, but it was up there, like kind of the more rural areas. But like I've gotten stories like down from into like the South, North Carolinas, the deserts, like out at Amboy and 29 Palms. There's even guys that on a Camp Horno in Camp Pendleton.
Hmm.
My brother is stationed there now, and he's like, dude, yeah, all the Marines here talk about the Camp Horno Skinwalker. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, dude, like dudes out here in this training area see fucking weird shit all the time. And there's all
Yeah.
these tunnels out here like that things can hide in. And I even spoke to like a Marine squad out there. Their squad name is the Skinwalkers. Somebody sent me in. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I saw it, I think, on actually Goons Up. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was their squad name was the Skinwalkers. And I got in contact with those guys. I'm like, hey, why you guys called the Skinwalkers? That's a badass name. And he was like, oh yeah, it's because our squad leader is like claims to be followed. He has a Skinwalker following him. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah. He's like, he claims that when he was a kid, he's had a Skinwalker following him or a creature of some type. And he's like, no shit. Every time we go out to train and we're out there like on the OP or something like that, we see this fucking thing in the bush line following us.
God damn it. It's like one of those things you're like, holy shit. Like you want it to be real, but you're like, are they just making shit up? But then part of you's like, I think this is fucking
Just kill
real.
them all. Just
Yeah.
shoot it. Just
Yeah.
shoot them right now.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just like, especially like you said, it's how common it is. Like I didn't really discover Wendigos until probably there was a video game. God, what was it called? That it was about the Wendigos, and it was like in this house complex. God, what was it called? Anyways, it had Rami Malek in it too. Like when he was like Mr. Robot, like he was his
Oh
career was kind of
shoot!
taking
It
off.
was Dead by
Yeah,
Daylight.
Dead by Daylight.
It
Yeah,
was like
and
that
I never
game.
yeah, yeah. I'd never played it, but I watched all the cutscenes because it like sucked me in, and I was like, "Holy shit! Like, what is this?" And I'm into video games, but I just at that time I wasn't playing very much of it, and I just went on YouTube and just somehow found it, and then watched all the cutscenes. But that was like I was like, "Yeah, that's a hell of a Wendigos." I didn't even hear I've never heard about that before. I'm actually kind of glad I didn't know about a lot of this stuff because I would have, dude, I'd be freaking myself out if I had, Tales from the Good Square on my
Well,
Instagram and I'm like going into fucking training areas, that,
you
balls
know,
deep in the dark,
you say that, but like you're stationed out here in Hawaii. This place is freaky out in these training areas, man.
Yeah, I never had any. Again, I was when I was out in Hawaii in Kahukus.
Hmm.
We were down in the bottom of a gulch, and I remember hearing little piglets running around. But obviously, there's pigs. But beyond that, but I remember reading the stories that I think it was on the Big Island that you had. Somebody wrote in about the warriors walking or
Oh yeah,
hearing
the
them.
night marchers, like at
Night
PTA.
marchers, yeah, yeah. And what's so in Hawaii? Then what's the other ones like on Oahu? Is
There's
there like
so like the night marchers are the common ones, and that's what I think people that's like kind of like a common like island one is
Mhm.
those are like the ghosts of the Hawaiian warriors. There's the woman in white. It's pretty prevalent here. Um, there's what else do they have here? There's shadow people they see all the time. Uh,
Mhm.
the Menehune, like the gnomes. So like, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Where I like, what's why I like looking into. So like on Oahu, they treat Menehune like they're spirits, right? But if you go to
Mhm.
like Kauai, like they treat Menehune like they were like real, like tangible, like physical people, because there's
Yeah.
ruins all over Kauai that the ancient Polynesians like called Menehune. Like I went to this place called Menehune Ditch, and it's literally like this like channel that somebody built carrying water into the mountains, right? Like into a cave. And like the Hawaiians, ancient Hawaiians use stack stone, right, to build the walls and stuff like that. This is cut stone. Like somebody brick and mortared this like channel to carry water into a cave, which if you follow the legends of like the Menehune, is they lived in the mountains. They're like no, like dwarfs, you know. Um,
Oh, okay.
and like the plaque even says it was built by the Menehune. This is like an official national
Oh,
landmark
no shit.
plat. Yeah.
Really?
Um,
That kind of makes a little more sense built in history, in history, because there's an island. It might actually be in the Pacific. But they did discover, or maybe it was in the Asian Pacific. Anyways, they're on record. There is like a species of like humans that were tiny, or were offset, and like it's been recorded. God damn it. Joe Rogan has talked about it, and
yeah.
I wish I could
I,
remember. It's like a legit thing. Like they're like, no, these were real species at
yeah.
some point in time. Yeah. And there was like an island of them, but it makes sense though. I mean, like I said, in Kauai, if there's another offshoot or another habitat or
Yeah.
another whatever,
I talked to a guy out in Kauai, just shooting the shit at a record shop one day, and he was saying like they were told never to really go into like the deep Waimea valleys and the canyons and stuff like that because supposedly if you go deep into those valleys and mountains, like, you find ruins, like ruins that are not Hawaiian ruins. They're something
really.
else. I don't know how true that is, but like Hawaiian culture is extremely, extremely interesting and fascinating, right? Um, like highly recommend like checking out some of the legends and stuff like that. It's definitely there's been some spooky times I've been out here, especially Schofield Barracks is where I'm stationed. Um,
Oh, dude, Schofield, I do remember. I
yeah,
do remember people talking about Schofield. It wasn't like I said, the internet wasn't. I mean, you had Facebook. That was it. Like Instagram, I don't even think was a thing yet. Or if it was very. It wasn't like it is today. Where everyone's telling their stories, or pages like yours. And but I do remember hearing kind of some fucked up stuff about the Schofield Barracks.
oh yeah,
You
the
know.
D Quad is the infamous one here. It's an old historic barrack that's been around since like when Schofield was made, and it's supposed to be like super fucking haunted.
Yeah.
And if you go
Yeah.
onto like the Schofield wives page and you go like look at some of the posts, there's a lot of wives that talk about how their houses are haunted here, and I honestly believe it, man. Like this place I've asked, and I've asked some like locals I'm cool with, like, hey, why don't you go take me to? I like to go in the mountains and go look for like in the jungle and go look for some of these like these kupu, these forbidden places, these ancient sites. And they're like, nah, dude, we're not gonna take you. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll be respectful. And it's like, no, dude, it's not about being respectful. It's like these ghosts and stuff out here that people talk about, they're demonic.
Yeah. Like they don't fuck around. That's wild. That's insane. Again, that's something like, all right, I believe you. You know what I mean? Like you said, like I'm not gonna fuck with it. Like it'd be really cool to go see him, but do you really want to mess with that? I think that you had another story like that too. It was a patrol. I think I don't know. It was a foreign country's military. They were doing an op like a training op or something like that, and then um, they ended up coming across some burial site, and they said it was fucking weird. Like I
Oh yeah.
said, you have like a million stories. I'm sure it's hard to keep track of them, but it's like I said, it's an amazing, read to kind of be like, hey, the first time in, I don't want to say first time in history, but it's not just like these weird ancient texts, or it's not hearsay or whatever. Like you're collecting very recent, memories of people. This isn't like 30, 40 years ago. Like, oh, one person, crazy guy in town said this, whatever. I mean, it's just constantly flow of information from, young people that are like, I know what I fucking saw, like, and then they and fully admit too, like, I know the purple monkey was fake, but then the other
Or
stuff you
was
do, you're
it?
like, or was it fake? Yeah, there are purple monkeys in Iraq, and the Al Anbar purple monkey, and yeah, I think that's you start hearing stuff, especially too with the UFOs, when that was a big conspiracy for years, 50, 60 years, and now it's all coming out, Now, whatever you want to take away from it, but the stories that your guys that are people are telling you, like, something, things happen to people and they're just like, what the fuck was that? Like, this is nuts. Like, this shouldn't exist. This shouldn't, this doesn't, this defies physics. And these are just grunts. They're not making fame and fortune off this one story they're telling.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
and that's like
And I think,
how I kind
yeah,
of cut through like the BS. It's all anonymous. You're
yeah,
not gonna unless
yeah,
you
exactly.
ask. Like most people don't. I've maybe had like 20 people out of all the stories I've posted. Like I keep it anonymous, so there's nothing to gain other than getting your story out there and maybe getting something off your chest, maybe getting an answer.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and it's like, and then you kind of start cross checking, and some people are like, holy shit, yeah, I was in that same area too. You know what I mean, or something like that. Like, you just start finding people like, yeah, that was a weird fucking area. And I love your book for what it's doing. Is the same way what Nick is doing with Battles and Beers. Like, and logging history, but also I think this is kind of almost as it's almost as important, understanding beyond the war, but like, militaries go everywhere and there's a lot of people in that, and they're going to see something that, most people aren't going to see, but because they're in deep into the jungles all the time, they're deep into these areas because they have to make movements. So it's more common that they're going to run into something that shouldn't have been seen, or, be out in the middle of the night where these things do linger, where they do creep,
Oh yeah.
and where they do live, and when they do come out at night, like, there's a lot of nocturnal things that we don't know about because that's just not our, it's not our territory. But when you start living in those type of areas, it's like going into another culture, like, you can treat it as such, if you look at it from a different lens, like, you can almost start making, not, scientific, but, people are starting to go, I mean, UFOs is now a mainstream belief. 50, well, 20, 30 years ago, you were
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
60 years ago, everyone believed in UFOs.
I
You
like how
know,
the government came out and
yeah,
it's like, yeah, there's UFOs in the sky, but we don't know what they are, and everybody's like, yeah, okay, sure, buddy, sure,
yeah,
we don't buy
exactly.
it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something, like you're doing, which, like I said, I think it's phenomenal. And, I think one of the other cool things too, I think there's another one, like I said, diving into that is, was it the rock apes of Vietnam? I think my buddy told me about those. Is that one of the stories you guys covered?
I think I
Or,
had one account from a guy's dad that he relayed through me before his dad passed
yeah,
about he had encountered like rock apes.
yeah. And there are some, so, again, like, it'd be interesting to see, again, that's the reach. I know Nick has a reach because he's just, getting stories from, from battles and whatnot. But it'd be interesting to see if you could reach out and be like, yeah, like the Vietnamese, those guys, have you guys seen weird shit? You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
what, the German, you do have other nations, obviously. You have like the Russians. What was the thing with the Russians?
So that dude
That
was
was,
actually he was a dude in the 82nd, and he was before he immigrated to the United States and then joined the army to become a naturalized citizen. Um, they have to serve conscription, so he as part of his conscription he was in the VDV, and like the guy's interesting to talk to. He actually has several. A lot of times, Nick and I's projects interlink here. Nick actually has had that guy on the page and in his book, because I mean, like by the time he went to Iraq with the 82nd or Afghanistan, he had been to 6 war zones.
Jesus.
Yeah, whatever Chechnya, all these things that the Russians were involved in. But like his stories was like he had a story about the Mongolian death worm. Like he literally saw this giant grub thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it was, which is fucking wild. Like that.
Right.
That. Yep. Now I remember that. It's just like, and it's like, all right, well, I guess this is a fucking rabbit hole I'm going to go down now on my phone.
Damn,
You know
I
what I
guess
mean?
there is a
Like,
giant worm in Mongolia somewhere.
yeah, but again, though, like, is that all out of the realm of possibility? You know what I mean? Like, there's, you saw, Forrest Gallant. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast. He still believes there's some giant fauna that are, from, whatever period still maybe existing somewhere. One or two left. He kind of still holds on to that, and he might be right. They found extinct species here and there. They're not, massive fucking sloths that he's hoping to find, which I think would be awesome to find a giant sloth that's like fucking 500 pounds and 10 feet tall. But
Would a giant
I
sloth move slow, or would it move like normal speed.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Would it just be like, lumbering like a bear kind of deal? Wouldn't move as, wouldn't run as fast, but just the ground it would cover. But no, yeah, man, that it's been, I think a lot of these stories that you're telling or that you're gathering, actually does give a lot more. It's fun and it's entertaining, but I do believe it. I think it gives a lot more credibility to this area, which might be something that could be revisited into an area of study. Because wasn't there actual studies? I mean, obviously we're younger, but I remember like even hearing it in like old '80s movies. But wasn't there like an actual like you could study paranormal activities like in colleges, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
at some point?
I think so. Yeah, there was like, I think it was still kind of like pseudoscience, like almost,
Yeah, yeah, like back in the Conjuring days or whatever, where you had Lorraine and what's, I can't remember the guy's name, but like on the Conjuring couple on television debating all this stuff, and yeah, some of it's probably some pseudoscience, but if you're like, I think the way that you're approaching it is fun, but also this is kind of like a little bit of scientific method. Like you're gathering these stories and they're starting to line up. They're starting to, you know, there's there's way more. They have way more in common for no reason. More and more people are seeing these things. Where they wouldn't before, or not say wouldn't, but like they shouldn't all know the same stuff,
Oh
and
yeah,
they've been seeing them. And so you start thinking like, well, there's something's got to be common here. Then maybe there's something real. Maybe it is something that is a little bit beyond what we know as reality, or something that's a little bit crosses in between both of those.
oh yeah, and like
So
I like to think with Nick's project, the amount of stories and war stories he's gotten from these guys, and like all the weird shit people have seen in war zones, in garrison, and whatever, and it's just like it's just waiting out there. I'm hoping like more people just come forward and bring this stuff up because it's like you're right, like you and I see the same thing. Like, okay, we can call it a coincidence, but like, like if four other people see the same thing and say have the exact same story as us, is it coincidence or is there something going on?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Especially in the combat zones, you know what I mean? Like, and soldiers, like I said, they got nothing to gain from it. So it's like gives it much more credibility than it used to be, And like the whole thing with with the Hawaiians, they're like, yeah, that's part of our legends. It's like that stuff doesn't get recorded, or at least unless you live there or something, you're not, you know, seeing, so you wouldn't quite understand it. But then in some cultures there's like, yeah, those are the fucking weird crazy little people that built fucking dams in the mountains,
It's
whatever,
crazy.
which is wild. You wouldn't think of it, but that's normal to them. And I think when you think about Afghanistan, like you just think of customs and cultures, but you start thinking of, what's it called, it's the spirit, it's an Arab spirit,
The gin.
the jinn, like the stories of the jinn that kind of spreads in that area, like I think there was a story you guys had where they shot at a jinn. I can't remember, or they saw one and
Oh,
it
I
was
got
just,
tons of
yeah,
stories of that. Or
yeah. I
I
was
guess
like,
if you could
right.
consider them gin.
Well, yeah, I can't remember what it was. I think they assumed it was jinn. I can't remember, or or something like that. I think whatever Afghans version of that was that they called it. But no, I just like I said, I think it's something that you could take more seriously, even as much as it is entertaining. It's like maybe there's something there. Maybe this is something real and something that we can kind of take a little, like I said, more scientific and a little more serious. Of like, why do they exist? Why is this happening? And it's sometimes like I like it when I read your stories and the guys are like, I'm not sleep deprived. I've done multiple deployments. I was well rested. Comms were good. Batteries were solid. I knew what I was doing, and this is what I fucking saw. And then there's like the stories of like other guys seeing it too at the same time. Like, did you fucking see that?
Oh yeah.
You know, like, and then that really fucking freaks you out because you're like, well, I'm not the only asshole out here that saw something weird, and yeah, I mean, it's just insane. It's wild. So, what's your, where do you, this is kind of like a fun thing for you, and you obviously, I bought your book. I fucking love it. Are you going to do some more, like you have a volume 2 coming out, or where do you see it kind of Tales from the Grid Square going here in the future? And obviously you're still active duty, so you're you know figuring stuff out in your career, but is there something that you want to do with this? This honestly, an amazing page. I mean, you kind of have like a little mini gold mine here. Do you plan on doing anything with it here in the future, or where do you see this kind of going?
Yeah, like I have a lot of people asking me to do a podcast, and I definitely say maybe that's in the future one day. My currently right now, like my current job, the time is just not there. I have to devote a lot of time to what I do right now in the army. Um, I definitely like writing. Um, it's something I've found that I thoroughly enjoy. From putting together the first volume of Tales from the Grid Square. The second, I'm working on a second book right now. It's going to be, I think, a lot better than the first one in terms of like I got a lot of good stories in there, and I got stories that people haven't seen on the page yet. Like yeah.
Oh,
So
oh,
like all
okay.
the stories in the first book, yeah, I have been posted on the page. However, I made sure like I personally read every single one of those stories and made the fine tunings to make sure that they're really easy to read and like that it tells a story really well. The
Hmm.
second book, I have, I think, 250 stories, over 250 in there right now. And some of those, I think about a good 20 to 30 have not been on the page.
Oh,
And
that's
pictures.
awesome.
There's pictures in
Oh,
there now,
and
too.
oh, okay. That's my favorite part because I'm a grunt. So I can, is it going to be in the middle of the book where you're like, oh shit, there's the pictures. What we
I
got?
spread them throughout. We got it. We got to. I don't want to
Yeah,
spoil
yeah.
too much, but there's a picture in there that I've been holding on to, and I've been waiting to release. And I don't want to spoil too much, but it's a good one. Um,
No, no, that's amazing. And speaking of picture, now I was going to tell you this. Now you reminded me. There was a time when there was a creepiness. So, in Zaydon, in Iraq, it was Kilo Company. I was a scout
mhm.
sniper, so like we went and supported one of our other teams for this mission, and we went up there, and the guys in that company or whatever. I remember one guy came up to me, he goes, "Dude, check this out," and I'm like, and he'd already shown a few other guys. Some guys like, "Do you guys see this?" See that? I was like, "Okay, what the fuck is it?" He like showed me his digital camera. Right, he took a photo of his buddy, and there was an Iraqi, like this dead Iraqi in it. Now, it wasn't like the Iraqi was dead, like like his head was fucking blown off or something, but it was like this Iraqi was not there, like did not exist when they took the photo.
Oh
You
shit!
know, so it was this digital, and I wish I would have known. I don't even know the guy's name. You know what I mean? It barely exists in my memory anymore, but I do remember that, and it always kind of stuck with me. And they're like, and he's like, kind of like there, and there's no one else around. Like I think he was in between them, like the camera and him, and it was like they just took the photo. No one was there, and then they looked at it, and there's a fucking Iraqi like right there, and there, so that was kind of like one of those like holy shit. They're like, and there was no Iraqis on this base too, by the way. Like this wasn't like a joint, like Iraqi, AMP or Iraqi army was there. Like they were not on the base when they took the photo. So, and it wasn't an interpreter or anything like that. So, um, it was so creepy. Like it was super I remember looking at it and be like, and having the chills kind of, it's not like, oh yeah, man, this fucking whatever. Like I looked at it and being like, holy shit, this is fucking scary, and like I said, the photo stuff, like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that
Oh shit,
in your
man!
in your next book. That'll be amazing. I mean, yeah, that's phenomenal.
Oh, I wish I
And
could see that picture. That would have been something.
yeah, now that I think of it, I wish I would have remembered the guy's name. I don't like, I was a new guy to the unit, so I actually didn't know a lot of people when we first deployed. So, it's kind of like some of the guys, like they come up through SOI. A lot of them knew each other. I just didn't. I was like the last 10 people to drop before the deployment. So I knew no one in the entire unit. So it's like, but I wish I would to have that photo or whatever. Now that I think back on it, but maybe someone's listening to this and we'll figure out who it
Oh
was. But
yeah.
it's just so wild. So that's cool. So you got to when could we expect volume 2 coming out, or do you have maybe a time frame or anything
So
like that?
I'm trying to get it out around the same time I pushed out Volume One, so around May. So far, I've been making pretty good progress. Knock on wood. I have a manuscript set together. Waiting for the finishing up some of the boring stuff, like the front pages and stuff like that. But the all that's left is gotta put the margins together, and then you know maybe I'm gonna print out one copy for myself to kind of comb through and make sure it's a product that I want to put out there. And then hopefully, yeah, May at the June at the latest, it's gonna be out, and I think it's people are going to really love this one. And from there, I mean, I have over 400 stories right now. Like if I wanted to, I could take half of the stories I have like in my notes section of my phone, put them aside, never touch them, and make another Tales from the Grid Square book
For like a volume 3.
for a volume 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for every one of those stories that I got, I get like 2 or 3 that are like not military related, like not quite like happened
Yeah.
while I was in the military, or like a civilian that sends me a story that's like, wow, this is really cool. So I am collecting a bunch of like civilian stories. I'm gonna call it Tales from the Home Front. Um,
Yeah.
and boom, I'll have like that one will be like I don't really post those. So
Yeah.
there's some really good ones in there as well.
Hmm.
And like you said too, there's a lot of inspiration for this stuff. I am working on a short fiction, and before someone says it, no, none of the stories in Tales from the Grid Square are ones that I made up or wrote.
Yeah.
They're not. Just I'm gonna put it out there. But I do like writing, and I've used some of these stories as inspiration to create a short fiction work of
No,
like
no, yeah, absolutely.
of stuff
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. I mean, I did that with the Russian sleep experiment. I don't
Oh,
know how
that's
many people
awesome,
wrote
man.
that. Yeah, yeah. I'll actually, I'll shoot it over to you. The third act kind of falls apart, but I got, it's like one of those things I had to finish by the end of the class. I was taking my last screenwriting class there in the summer, and I finished it. Did a few revisions, so it's kind of coherent. It's really good all the way up till about the last third, and I just needed to end it somehow, and it just kind of like did a quick little Hollywood action ending, whatever the fucking, it doesn't quite totally fit, but it has the
The
tone.
Russians shoot an
But
RPG at the monsters,
exactly, yeah, it was
which
like
is
there's
something
a
they would
tunnel
do.
that yeah, there's a tunnel somehow to get out. I just fucking I was like, there's like a submarine tunnel that I didn't know. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyways, but like leading up to that, because there's supposed to be no way out, and then suddenly they find, yeah, like yeah, we already see the flaw. So, but no, I mean that's great, and drawing inspiration from that is great. That's how most people write, fictional stories, anyways, or screenplays or and whatnot. So, have you found it like are people like in the paranormal community? Like I saw, I think Blurry Creatures, or is there like, like I said that's kind of a big community in itself that like not want to say comic cons or conventions, but your Instagram's picked up some steam. Have any of these people in the community reached out to you, or is it a welcoming community, or is it just kind of like, meh, yeah, we're just all here, kind of deal?
Oh yeah, I mean I've had some good experience so far, like going on a Wes Germer show, the Blurry Creatures boys, like those that was a great show to go on. The Uncomfortable podcast, the Higher Side chats, the Paranormal Insider. There's all these guys have been pretty open because it's just like this is just like a this like this topic of military paranormal is so kind of like unique, I guess.
Yeah,
And it's like the other aspect for me is I tell a lot of guys that are in the military, there's people in some of these stories. There's like you hear some higher up say, "Hey, don't talk about this," right? And a lot of times people just like assume it's because they know what's going on. And I tell people like, honestly, what it boils down to is like we don't have time to think about this. We have a job to do. Like
yeah,
nobody
yeah,
wants to be known as the guy that saw Bigfoot. You need to be known as the
yeah.
guy that can get the job done.
Yeah,
So
it's like the Navy. Yeah, it's like the Navy pilot that was on Rogan. He's like, yeah, that was normal. He's like, we saw UFOs all the time, and they were just like, get the fuck out of. They were like, oh, these guys are in their airspace, but we're training for war, so no one wanted to. It's recorded, but no one wants to like really be like, what the fuck is this?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like lose your mind because you're trying to do a workup for Afghanistan.
oh yeah,
And like it makes total sense too. I'm like, yeah, like why would a fucking captain listen to some you know private or even a seasoned squad leader, like why even the squad leader's like, god damn, I just want to go home,
yep.
crawl into bed, like we're on this fucking op, I'm seeing skinwalkers and goddamn ghosts, and I just want to go home.
Yeah, like I
What I mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
posted one story of a guy that saw a giant and he didn't tell his guys because he's like, if I told my guys, they would be thinking about the giant and not the enemy. And sure as shit, we get ambushed like 2 hours later, you know. Um, and it's just like you said, yeah, it's just you got more important things to worry about than what did I just see.
yeah, yeah.
Or
Oh, that's
maybe
great,
you
man.
just don't want to say anything because you don't want people to not trust you or think you're loose
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Nick, it was been amazing to have you on this Friday night, your Friday afternoon. This was honestly, we're going to do this again. In fact, I just want to keep talking and
Oh yeah,
having
man.
multiple conversations like this. This stuff seriously is so much fun, and I love it. And as a kind of a filmmaker, kind of a light write, I write every so often. Nothing, I'm not super heavy into it, but more for just you know. Filmmaking and commercial work and whatnot. So, but these always get I love reading this. This is like you and Nick with this formatting is kind of amazing with social media. I think it's one of the positives that come out of social media. I think that what you said, like the guys in the paranormal community, you've brought to the forefront the military aspect, but I think they love that. They have to love that because it gives it more of a credence to reality and to be a lot more real, like this isn't some crazy kooks like in whatever in the corner of the bar talking shit or whatever. Like these are guys that just are normal dudes that are constantly seeing these things, and I think that lends a lot of reality to you know what they've believed for decades on end. So I think it's what you're doing is awesome, and I love it. I think it's phenomenal, great, it's creative, it's fun, and I'm super looking forward to volume 2. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Where can everybody find you at? And, look out for your book, or where can you get your volume 1?
Yeah, so yeah, if you guys want to read the book, it's available through Amazon. I have a Kindle version you can read on your phones, and I have the course to print version. Print's always better in my opinion. But if you search Tales from the Grid Square, Volume 1 by Nick Orton, on the Amazon search bar, pop right up. Sometimes you got to filter by books if it's not apparent, but it should be in there now since it's been out for a while. Or you can go to my page, Tales from the Grid Square, on Instagram, which is TALES underscore THE_FROM. Oh, I did that backwards. Wow, it's been a long day. It's
That's all good.
TALES underscore FROM underscore THE underscore GRIDSQUAR. Tales from the Grid Square on Instagram. I have a link there that you can easily find the book. I also have an email, and if you have a story, the email is talesfromthegridsquare@gmail.com. And if you have a story that you want to share or just want to chat or have like a secondhand story or just want to get something off your chest, I am available on both of those. You can DM me anytime. Military, you have to have your phone on you 24/7. So I always got my phone on me, and I'll always check my email. So please, if you have a story to share, I'm hoping that I can find some more stories and keep adding them out there and putting them out. Maybe some people can get some answers or just get something off their chest.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I hope you have a great weekend. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Awesome, man. I look forward to coming back. This is great.
Awesome. Absolutely. We'll definitely have you on again. All right, but take care.
Take care.